She was bleeding from her nose when Sophia found her collapsed in the bathroom, the 5-year-old's body convulsing on the cold marble floor, and in that moment, watching the CEO's daughter seize while millions in medical bills sat useless on the desk downstairs. Sophia realized she was the only one who had been looking in the right place all along. But we need to go back 3 weeks to understand how a nanny with a worn suitcase and no medical degree would solve what dozens of specialists couldn't. Sophia stepped off the bus, her battered suitcase in hand, and stared at the address on the crumpled paper. She checked it 3 times because she simply couldn't believe what her eyes were seeing. Behind the wrought iron gate stood the largest mansion she had ever seen in her life. A palace of glass and marble that looked like it had been pulled from an international architecture magazine. She adjusted her brown hair pulled back in an improvised bun and took a deep breath. At 32, she had worked in many houses, cared for many children, but had never set foot in a place like this. The employment agency had called the day before saying a businesswoman urgently needed a nanny with experience in children with special needs. The salary offered was 5 times higher than any other job she'd ever had. Sophia pressed the intercom button and waited. A female voice, dry and formal, answered after a few seconds. "Yes, good morning. I'm Sophia Mendez. I came for the nanny interview." There was a pause that lasted too long. Sophia felt her stomach tighten, imagining she might have gotten the address wrong, the time wrong, or that they had already found someone else. But then the gate began to open with a mechanical hum. "Come in. Follow the main path to the front door." The garden was immense, with perfectly manicured flower beds and a marble fountain in the center. Sophia walked slowly, absorbing every detail. She had grown up in a 2-room house on the outskirts of Belo Horizonte, sharing a bedroom with 3 sisters. She had never imagined people lived like this. The front door opened before she could ring the bell. A woman with gray hair pulled back in a severe bun examined her from head to toe with eyes that seemed to catalog every flaw. "I'm Dona Elsa, the housekeeper. Ms. Fernanda is waiting in the office." Sophia nodded and followed the woman down the marble hallway. The walls were decorated with paintings that probably cost more than everything she owned. Her worn shoes made an embarrassing sound against the polished floor. Dona Elsa stopped in front of a dark wooden door and knocked twice. "Ms. Fernanda, the candidate has arrived. She can come in." The voice was deep, tired. Sophia entered the office and saw a woman sitting behind an imposing desk, surrounded by piles of papers and medical files. Fernanda Almeida was 38 years old, but looked at least 10 years older. Deep dark circles marked her face, and there was a tension in her shoulders that suggested sleepless nights. She looked up and studied Sophia for a moment. Sophia felt like she was being evaluated like a piece on a board. "Please, sit down." She obeyed, placing her suitcase on the floor next to the chair. "The agency told me you have experience with sick children." "Yes, ma'am. I worked 3 years with a girl who had cerebral palsy. Before that, I cared for a boy with severe autism for 2 years. And why did you leave those jobs?" "The girl went to a specialized institution when her mother moved to another country. The boy..." Sophia paused, feeling the familiar lump in her throat. "The boy passed away. Heart complications." Fernanda observed her more carefully. There was something different in her look now, a shadow of recognition. "I'm sorry." "Thank you. It was difficult, but I learned a lot from him. I learned to pay attention to details, to small changes that sometimes doctors don't notice." Fernanda leaned back in her chair and ran her hand over her face, a gesture of exhaustion that seemed automatic. "I'm going to be direct with you, Sophia. In the last 2 years, I've spent more than 3 million reais on doctors and specialists, exams, treatments. My daughters, Marina and Isabella, are 5 years old. They're twins. They're sick." Sophia leaned forward, listening. "No doctor can figure out what they have. It started about 1.5 years ago. Extreme fatigue, muscle pain, concentration problems, weight loss. We've done every imaginable test. We've consulted specialists in Sao Paulo, Rio, New York, Boston. Nobody knows what it is, and the symptoms are getting worse. Slowly, yes. At first, they thought it was anemia. Then they suspected some autoimmune syndrome. We did bone marrow biopsy, MRI, genetic tests, all inconclusive. Sophia processed the information in silence. Something in that story didn't make complete sense, but she couldn't identify what. Where is the children's mother? Fernanda's expression closed like a door being locked. Carolina died 2 years ago. Car accident. The girls were 3 years old. I'm so sorry, Miss Fernanda. The symptoms started about 6 months after her death. She made a long pause. The doctors say it might be psychosomatic, that they're manifesting grief through the body. But I don't believe that. Something is wrong with my daughters, and I'm going to find out what it is, even if I spend every cent I have. At that moment, the office door opened, and a woman in a white coat entered without knocking. She was about 50 years old, gray hair combed back, and carried a leather briefcase that seemed to cost more than Sophia's monthly salary. Fernanda, we need to talk about the latest panel results. The doctor stopped when she saw Sophia. Who is this? Dr. Otavia. This is Sophia. She's being interviewed for the nanny position. The doctor examined her with a look that made Sophia feel like an insect under a magnifying glass. Another nanny, Fernanda. We've already talked about this. What your daughters need is specialized medical care. Not another domestic worker playing nurse. Sophia felt her blood rise to her face but maintained her composure. I have certification in first aid and pediatric care, doctor. Dr. Otavia let out a short, disdainful laugh. Very impressive certification. And where did you study medicine? At the neighborhood college? Otavia. Fernanda's voice had a warning tone. I'm just being realistic. You've hired 5 nannies in the last year, Fernanda. None lasted more than 2 months. Your daughters need health professionals, not people who will panic at the first emergency. Sophia stood up. She didn't know where the courage came from, but the words came out before she could contain them. With all due respect, doctor, how long have you been treating these children? Dr. Otavia narrowed her eyes. 18 months. And in that time, have you been able to figure out what they have? The silence that followed was deafening. Fernanda looked from one to the other, clearly surprised by Sophia's audacity. Listen here, young lady. Sophia. She didn't back down. My name is Sophia, and I'm not saying I know more than you. I'm just saying that sometimes a different pair of eyes can see things that others haven't seen. Not because they're smarter, but because they're looking from a different angle. Dr. Otavia huffed and turned to Fernanda. You're not going to hire this woman. Fernanda remained silent for a long moment, looking at Sophia with an expression she couldn't decipher. Then she stood up. Sophia, I want you to meet my daughters. Fernanda, this is absurd. Otavia, you can go. We'll talk about the results later. The doctor left huffing, slamming the door harder than necessary. Fernanda walked up to Sophia, and for the first time since she'd arrived, sketched something like a smile. You have courage. I have to admit that. I just have experience being underestimated, ma'am. After a while, you learn not to accept it silently. They climbed a marble staircase to the second floor. The hallway was decorated with family photos, and Sophia noticed a smiling blonde woman in several of them, hugging 2 identical babies. Carolina, the mother the girls had lost. Fernanda stopped in front of a door painted light blue. They're resting. Lately they spend most of the day in bed. They don't have energy to play, run, do children's things. She opened the door slowly. The room was huge, with 2 twin beds separated by a nightstand full of medicines. The walls had cloud-patterned wallpaper, and there were toys scattered on the floor, but all seemed untouched for a long time. In the beds, 2 identical blonde girls were lying down, covered to their chins despite the heat. They were too small for 5 years old, too thin, too pale. One of them was sleeping. The other looked at the door with large, tired eyes. "Mama." "Hi, my love. I brought someone to meet you." Sophia approached slowly, sitting in a chair next to the awake girl's bed. "Hi, what's your name?" The girl studied her with the natural distrust of children who have seen many adults come and go from their lives. "Marina. That's Isabella. She's sleeping." "Nice to meet you, Marina. I'm Sophia." "Are you a doctor?" "No, I'm a nanny." Marina frowned. "A nanny? Like, to take care of us?" "That's right." The other nannies left. They didn't like staying here. "Why do you think that?" Marina shrugged. A small, tired gesture. "I don't know. I think we're too much work. We're always tired and can't play right." Sophia felt her heart squeeze. 5 years old, and that girl had already learned to blame herself for being sick. "Marina, can I tell you a secret?" The girl nodded, her eyes a bit more interested. "I'm not going to leave. You know why?" "Why?" "Because I like children who are work. They're the most interesting." Marina sketched something like a smile, the first Sophia had seen on her face. "You're weird." "Thank you. That's a compliment." In the other bed, Isabella began to move. She opened her eyes slowly, blinking against the light, and looked at Sophia with confusion. "Who are you?" "I'm Sophia. I came to meet you." Isabella didn't respond, just kept looking at her with an empty expression that made Sophia realize this twin was different from her sister. More closed off, more fragile, more affected by the illness. Fernanda watched from the door, arms crossed, expression unreadable. "What do you think?" Sophia stood up and walked over to her, speaking low so the girls wouldn't hear. "They need more than medicine, Miss Fernanda. They need someone who is present, who observes, who pays attention to small things." "And you would be that person?" Sophia looked at the 2 girls, so small in those enormous beds, and felt something move in her chest. The same feeling she'd had when she met the autistic boy who ended up dying in her arms. The feeling that these children needed her. "I would like to try." Fernanda studied her for a long moment, then extended her hand. "You start tomorrow. Donna Elsa will show you your room." Sophia shook her hand, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. Donna Elsa appeared at the door as if summoned by telepathy. "I'll show you your room, miss." Sophia followed the housekeeper down the hallway, past more closed doors, more expensive paintings, more evidence of a wealth she had never seen up close. Her room was at the end of the hall, near the girls' room. "Here it is." Donna Elsa opened the door, revealing a simple but comfortable room with a twin bed, a wooden wardrobe, and a window overlooking the garden. "The bathroom is the second door on the left. Breakfast is served at 7. Ms. Fernanda has dinner at 8, but the girls eat earlier, at 6. "I understand. Thank you, Donna Elsa." The housekeeper hesitated at the door, as if she wanted to say something more. Sophia waited. "Miss Sophia." "You can just call me Sophia." "The other nannies, they didn't leave because the children are work." Donna Elsa lowered her voice. "They left because this house is sad, and because Dr. Ottavia made their lives impossible." "Why are you telling me this?" Donna Elsa studied her for a moment, and Sophia saw something soften in her hard expression. "Because you looked at those girls the right way." Before Sophia could respond, the housekeeper had already left, closing the door behind her. Sophia sat on the bed and looked out the window. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange. Somewhere in that mansion, 2 5-year-old girls were lying in their beds, too weak to play. She thought about everything she had seen: the desperate mother, the arrogant doctor, the housekeeper who seemed to know more than she said, and the twins, so small and fragile. She didn't know what was wrong with those girls, but something in her instinct said the answer was there in that house, hidden in plain sight, and she was determined to find it, whatever the cost. Sophia's first week at the mansion was a constant exercise in observation. She woke at 6 a.m, even before Donna Elsa, and spent a few minutes in silence, absorbing the sounds and smells of the house. There was something there she couldn't identify, a persistent feeling that something was wrong beyond the girl's illness. The twins woke around 7, always exhausted, always complaining of pain. Sophia noticed that symptoms seemed worse in the morning and improved slightly throughout the day. "Marina, do you want to have breakfast outside today?" The girl looked at her with surprise. "Outside?" "In the garden, under that big tree." Marina hesitated, looking at her sister in the other bed. "Isabella won't want to. She doesn't like leaving the room." Sophia approached Isabella's bed. The girl was awake, but kept her eyes fixed on the ceiling. "Isabella, do you want to have breakfast in the garden?" "No." Sophia didn't insist, but made a mental note. Isabella was significantly worse than Marina. After breakfast, Dr. Ottavia arrived for her daily visit. Sophia was in the girls' room, helping Marina put together a simple puzzle when the doctor entered without knocking. "How are the patients today?" "The same," Sophia responded without looking up from the puzzle. "Doctor," Ottavia ignored her and went straight to Isabella's bed, taking a stethoscope from her coat pocket. "Let's see how this heart is doing, champ." Isabella didn't respond. Let the doctor examine her with the passivity of someone who's been examined hundreds of times without result. "Heart rate is a bit elevated," Dr. Ottavia murmured to herself. "I'm going to order another blood panel." "Doctor, Sophia. Can I ask a question?" "Go ahead." "The girls' symptoms seem worse in the morning and improve when they leave the room. Have you considered there might be something in the environment causing this, doctor?" Ottavia looked at her as if she had suggested the earth was flat. "Miss Sophia, I studied medicine for 8 years and have been practicing for over 20. I've considered all possible hypotheses, including environmental factors. The house was tested for mold, asbestos, lead, radon, all negative. And cleaning products?" "What?" "Cleaning products. Some can cause reactions in sensitive children, especially if used frequently in closed environments." Dr. Ottavia let out a short laugh. "Cleaning products? Of course, because with all my years of experience and all the specialists we've consulted, didn't think of something so obvious." She turned to her with an expression of pure disdain. "Miss, I understand you want to help, but leave medicine to the doctors. Your job is to care for the children, not diagnose them." Sophia felt her face burn but kept her voice steady. "I was just making an observation." "Well, keep your observations to yourself." Dr. Ottavia closed her briefcase and headed for the door. "I'm going to talk to Ms. Fernanda about the new blood panel." When she left, Marina looked at Sophia with a curious expression. "Why doesn't she like you?" "I don't know, my love. Some people don't like it when others ask questions. Mama used to say that questions are important. She said that's how we learn new things." Sophia felt a tightness in her chest. "Your mama was right. Did you know she died?" The question came so direct, so devoid of filter, that Sophia needed a moment to respond. "I did know. I'm very sorry." "Me too." Marina returned her attention to the puzzle. "Sometimes I forget she died. Then I remember and get sad again. It's normal to feel that way. Isabella doesn't talk about her. She gets angry when I talk about her." Sophia looked at the other bed, where Isabella was lying with her back to them. Each person has a different way of dealing with sadness. Does sadness make us sick? The question was so simple, and yet so profound that Sophia didn't know how to respond immediately. Sometimes it can, but not always. Dr. Otavia said we're sick because of sadness, but I don't believe it. I'm not that sad. Sophia filed away that information. So the doctor really believed the symptoms were psychosomatic. But something in that theory didn't make sense. 5-year-old children could manifest physical symptoms from emotional stress, but usually not in such a severe and prolonged way. That afternoon, while the girls took a nap, Sophia decided to explore the house. She told Dona Elsa she was looking for the library, but actually wanted to better understand the environment where the children lived. The mansion was huge, with 3 floors and more than 20 rooms. Sophia walked through each one carefully, noting details most people would ignore. The carpets were cleaned daily. The windows were rarely opened. The air conditioning system ran all the time, recycling the same air throughout the house. When she reached the cleaning supply storage in the basement, she found something that caught her attention. There were dozens of bottles of a specific product, an industrial disinfectant she had never seen before. The label said, Formula Clean Pro, Professional Use. Sophia picked up one of the bottles and read the ingredients. Most were chemicals she didn't recognize, but one jumped out at her, glutaraldehyde. She vaguely remembered reading something about this substance years ago when she worked at the hospital. It was used to sterilize medical equipment, but could cause respiratory and neurological problems with prolonged exposure. Can I help you with something? Sophia turned and found Dona Elsa standing at the storage door, arms crossed. I was looking for the library and got lost. The library is on the 2nd floor. This is the basement. Sophia put the bottle back on the shelf. Sorry, this house is very big. Dona Elsa didn't seem convinced, but said nothing. She just guided her back to the stairs. Miss Sophia, a word of advice. Ms. Fernanda is a very private woman. She doesn't like people who ask too many questions or go places where they weren't invited. I understand. And Dr. Otavia? Dona Elsa hesitated. She has a lot of power in this house. Ms. Fernanda trusts her completely. If you contradict her, you won't last long here. Thanks for the warning. It's not a warning, it's a fact. That night, Sophia couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the cleaning product, the girls' symptoms, how everything got worse in the morning and improved when they left the room. There was a connection there. She was sure of it, but she needed more information before making any accusations. The next morning, she woke earlier than normal and went to the girls' room before the cleaning crew arrived. The smell was subtle, but unmistakable. The same industrial disinfectant she had seen in the basement. The girls were still sleeping. Sophia approached the window and tried to open it, but it was locked. All the room windows were locked. What are you doing? Fernanda was standing at the door, still in pajamas, hair disheveled. Good morning, Miss Fernanda. I was trying to open the window. They stay locked, security against intruders. The girls never get fresh air in here. Fernanda frowned. The air conditioning system filters and purifies the air constantly. It's cleaner than outside air. But it's the same air being recycled continuously. What's your point, Sophia? She hesitated. She knew she was stepping on dangerous ground. Dr. Otavia had already warned her not to meddle where she wasn't called. Dona Elsa had said Fernanda didn't like questions. But those 2 girls were wasting away, and nobody seemed to be looking in the right direction. Ms. Fernanda, can I be honest with you? I'd prefer you be. I think the girls are being exposed to something inside this house that's causing symptoms. I don't know exactly what it is, but the signs are here. Symptoms get worse in the morning when they've just spent all night in the room. They improve when they leave. The windows are kept closed. The same air recycled all the time. Fernanda observed her in silence for a long moment. Dr. Otavia already ruled out environmental factors. Dr. Otavia looked for mold, asbestos, lead, obvious things. But what about the chemicals used in cleaning? What about volatile compounds that can accumulate in closed environments? Are you suggesting my own staff are poisoning my daughters? Not intentionally. But sometimes people use products without knowing they can be dangerous, especially for children. Fernanda ran her hand over her face. the gesture of exhaustion Sophia already knew well. "Sophia, I appreciate your dedication, but you've been here 1 week. We've had specialists working on this case for over a year. I know. And I'm not saying I know more than them. I'm just saying maybe they're looking in the wrong place." Before Fernanda could respond, a scream came from the girl's room. Sophia ran inside and found Isabella sitting up in bed, shaking violently, her eyes rolling back. "Isabella! Isabella!" Fernanda was beside her in seconds. "What's happening?" "It looks like a seizure. Call emergency." Fernanda grabbed the phone while Sophia turned Isabella on her side, protecting her head, doing everything she had learned in her first aid courses. Marina was awake now, crying in the corner of the bed. "What's happening to Isabella?" "Everything's going to be okay, my love. Everything's going to be okay." Marina cried harder, sobs shaking her small body. "Is Isabella going to die? Is she going to die like Mama?" "No, sweetheart, she's not going to die. We're going to take care of her." The seizure lasted less than 2 minutes, but seemed like an eternity. When Isabella finally stopped shaking, she was unconscious, breathing shallow, face pale as paper. Fernanda was on the phone shouting instructions to someone on the other end of the line. Donna Elsa appeared at the door, face white with fright. "What happened?" "Call Dr. Ottavia," Fernanda ordered. "Tell her it's an emergency." While they waited for the ambulance, Sophia kept Isabella on her side, monitoring her breathing, talking to her in a low voice, even knowing she probably couldn't hear. "You're going to be okay, my love. Sophia is here." Marina had gotten out of bed and was clinging to her leg. "Why is she like this?" Isabella's body got confused. "The doctors will help." The ambulance arrived in 12 minutes. The paramedics entered the room efficiently, but Sophia saw worry in their eyes. How long has she been like this? The seizure lasted about 2 minutes. She lost consciousness as soon as it stopped. History of seizures? Fernanda shook her head. Never. She never had a seizure before. Any pre-existing medical condition. She's been under investigation for over a year for an undiagnosed illness. Fatigue, muscle pain, weight loss. The paramedics exchanged a look Sophia didn't like. "We're taking her to the hospital. Can you come with us?" Fernanda looked at Sophia. "You'll stay with Marina?" "Of course. Go with her." As the paramedics put Isabella on the stretcher, Marina clung even tighter to Sophia's leg. "I want to go with Isabella." "You can't go, my love. But Mama will go with her and will call us telling us everything. Promise?" "Promise." Fernanda leaned down and kissed Marina's forehead. "Mama's going to bring Isabella back, okay? You stay here with Sophia, okay?" When the ambulance left, Sophia stood on the porch with Marina in her arms, watching the red lights disappear at the end of the street. The girl had stopped crying but was still shaking. "Sophia?" "Yes, my love?" "Do you think Isabella will be okay?" Sophia wanted to say yes, wanted to promise everything would be fine, but she couldn't lie to that girl who had already lost her mother and now saw her sister being taken away in an ambulance. "I think the doctors will do everything they can to help her. But you don't know if she'll be okay. Nobody knows the future, Marina, but I know one thing." "What?" "That your sister is strong, and that she has many people who love her and want her to be well." Marina nodded slowly, absorbing the words. "Does Sophia love Isabella?" The question caught Sophia by surprise. "I do. Do you love me too?" "I love you very much." Marina rested her head on Sophia's shoulder. "I love you too, Sophia." In that moment, holding that small, scared girl, Sophia made a decision. She wasn't going to wait anymore. She wasn't going to stay silent anymore. There was something wrong in that house that was killing these children, and she was going to find out what it was, even if it cost her job. Isabella's seizure wasn't just another symptom. It was a warning. Isabella spent 3 days in the hospital. Sophia took care of Marina during that time. but her mind was constantly on the hospitalized girl and the theory forming in her head. Every night, after Marina fell asleep, she researched glutaraldehyde poisoning, volatile organic compounds, the effects of chemicals on children. What she discovered left her cold. Glutaraldehyde in prolonged exposure could cause exactly the symptoms the twins were presenting: chronic fatigue, muscle pain, neurological problems, weight loss. In severe cases, it could lead to seizures. And Isabella, who spent more time in the room than Marina because she was more withdrawn, was receiving a higher dose. The theory made sense, made too much sense. But Sophia knew having a theory wasn't enough. She needed proof. On the third day, Fernanda brought Isabella back home. The girl was even paler, even weaker, with a hospital bracelet on her wrist. "Isabella, I'm so glad you're back." The girl looked at her with empty eyes. "Hi." Marina ran to her sister and hugged her carefully, as if afraid of breaking her. "I missed you, Isabella." "Me too." Fernanda looked like she had aged 10 years in 3 days. She had stubble on her face, red eyes from lack of sleep, and an expression of defeat Sophia had never seen. "The hospital doctors didn't find anything either," she said, when the girls went to their room with Donna Elsa. "They did every imaginable test. The seizure was classified as idiopathic, no known cause." "Ms. Fernanda." "No, Sophia, no." She raised her hand. "I know what you want to say. I've seen it in your eyes since you arrived. You think you know something the doctors don't?" "I don't think I know more than the doctors, but I think I found something worth investigating." Fernanda looked at her with a mixture of exhaustion and desperation. "What did you find?" Sophia took a deep breath. It was now or never. "The cleaning product used in this house, Formula Clean Pro, contains glutaraldehyde, a compound that can cause all the symptoms the girls have: fatigue, muscle pain, neurological problems. In prolonged exposure, it can cause seizures." Fernanda remained silent for a long moment. "How do you know this?" "I worked in a hospital years ago. Glutaraldehyde was used to sterilize equipment. Workers who were exposed developed health problems. After I found the product in the basement, I researched it. The symptoms are identical." "And why didn't the doctors think of this?" "Because they were looking for diseases. They were looking for something inside the girls. They never thought to look for something in the environment." Fernanda ran her hand over her face. "Sophia, are you telling me my own staff are poisoning my daughters?" "Not intentionally. Donna Elsa probably doesn't know the product is dangerous. She's trying to keep the house clean, but the product is too strong for domestic use, and the girls spend hours in that room with closed windows, breathing the fumes. That's why Isabella would be more affected than Marina. Because Isabella spends more time in the room. She's more withdrawn, stays in bed more. Marina tries to go out, play in the garden. She receives smaller doses." Fernanda remained silent for so long that Sophia thought she was going to be fired. But then she did something Sophia didn't expect. She sat in a chair and began to cry. "I spent 3 million Rs. I consulted the best doctors in the world. And you're telling me the answer was right under my nose the whole time." Sophia approached and knelt beside her. "I could be wrong, but there's only one way to find out." "How?" "By taking the girls out of this house for a few weeks. If they improve, we'll know it's something in the environment. If they don't improve, we go back to square one." "Where would I take them?" "Anywhere. A hotel, a rented house, a relative's house, anywhere that hasn't been cleaned with this product." Fernanda wiped her eyes and looked at her. "Do you really believe this?" "I believe it's worth trying." At that moment, the door opened and Dr. Ottavia entered, followed by Donna Elsa. "Fernanda, I came as soon as I heard Isabella was back from the hospital." The doctor stopped seeing Sophia kneeling next to her boss. "What's going on here?" Fernanda stood up. "Sophia presented me with an interesting theory." "A theory?" Dr. Ottavia let out a laugh. "The nanny is making diagnoses now. She thinks the girls are being poisoned by the cleaning product used in the house. The silence that followed was charged. Dr. Ottavia looked from Fernanda to Sophia, her expression going from disbelief to anger. This is absolutely ridiculous. You're going to believe a woman who probably didn't even finish high school instead of me, who studied medicine for 8 years? Sophia stood up. I finished high school, doctor, and I also took courses in first aid, pediatric care, and environmental safety. I'm not a doctor, but I know how to recognize when something is wrong. And what exactly is wrong in your professional opinion? The Formula Clean Pro product contains glutaraldehyde. It's an industrial disinfectant that shouldn't be used in domestic environments, much less in children's rooms. Prolonged exposure causes fatigue, muscle pain, neurological problems, and seizures. Exactly the symptoms Marina and Isabella present. Dr. Ottavia laughed again, but there was something nervous in her laugh now. Fernanda, I beg you not to take this seriously. This woman is clearly overstepping her bounds. Then prove I'm wrong, Sophia said, facing the doctor. Do a specific toxicology test for glutaraldehyde. If it's negative, I'll leave and never mention this again. I'm not going to waste resources on conspiracy theories from a domestic worker. Then you're afraid of finding out I'm right. Dr. Ottavia's face turned red. How dare you? Enough. Fernanda's voice cut through the air. Dr. Ottavia, I want you to do the test Sophia is asking for. Fernanda, this is absurd. I'm paying. I decide what's absurd or not. After everything I've done for you and your daughters, you're going to believe this woman? Fernanda approached the doctor. Ottavia, you're an excellent doctor, but in over a year you haven't been able to figure out what my daughters have. Sophia has been here weeks and already has a theory that makes sense. If she's wrong, nothing is lost. If she's right, my daughters can finally get better. Dr. Ottavia looked from Fernanda to Sophia, anger practically radiating from her body. Very well. I'll do the test, but when it comes back negative, I want this woman out of this house. If it comes back negative, I'll pack my bags myself, Sophia said. Great, we have an agreement. The doctor left, slamming the door. Donna Elsa, who had remained silent during the entire discussion, looked at Sophia with an expression she couldn't decipher. I hope you know what you're doing, miss. I hope so too, Donna Elsa. When they were alone, Fernanda turned to Sophia. Are you sure about this? No, but I'm sure we need to try something different. Traditional methods aren't working, and if you're wrong, then I'll leave and you keep looking for answers. And if you're right? Sophia thought for a moment. If I'm right, your daughters will get better. And you'll have to accept that sometimes the most important answers come from those we least expect. Fernanda looked at her for a long moment, and Sophia saw something in her eyes she hadn't seen before. Hope. Fragile. Hesitant, but real. Thank you, Sophia, for not giving up. I never give up on children who need me. That night, Sophia went to the girls' room to say goodnight. Isabella was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, while Marina played with some toy cars on the floor. Hi, girls. I came to say goodnight. Marina looked up. Sophia, Mama said we're going to travel. Maybe. Mama's still deciding. Where to? I don't know yet, but it'll be an adventure. Isabella turned in bed and looked at her. I don't want to travel. Why, my love? Because this is Mama's house. If we leave, she won't know where we are. Sophia felt her heart squeeze. 5 years old, and that girl still expected her mother to come back. Isabella, your mama will always know where you are, no matter where you go. How? Because she lives here. Sophia touched her own chest. In your heart, and your heart goes with you everywhere. Isabella was silent for a moment, processing the words. Do you think Mama's happy? I think she's very proud of you and your sister, and I think she wants you to be well. We're not well. I know, but you will be. Promise? Sophia hesitated. She didn't want to make promises she couldn't keep. But looking at that fragile girl, so small in that huge bed, she couldn't contain herself. I promise I'll do everything I can, so you'll be well. And it was a promise she intended to keep, whatever the cost. The next 2 days were tense. Dr. Ottavia had collected blood and urine samples from the girls for toxicology tests, but results would take at least 48 hours. Fernanda had decided to follow Sophia's advice and rented a beach house 2 hours from the city. The idea was to take the girls there as soon as results came out, regardless of what they showed. Sophia agreed. Even if the tests were negative, getting the children out of that environment could help. On the second night of waiting, Sophia was in the girls' room, helping Marina draw while Isabella rested, when Donna Elsa appeared at the door. "Miss Sophia, I need to talk to you. In private." Sophia followed the housekeeper to the kitchen, where they found privacy. "What is it, Donna Elsa?" The older woman hesitated, hands nervously intertwined. "I need to tell you something about the cleaning product." Sophia felt her heart race. "What about it?" "I was the one who chose that product. 2 years ago, when Mrs. Carolina died, Ms. Fernanda became obsessed with hygiene. She wanted the house to be impeccably clean, sterilized. She said she didn't want anyone else to get sick. And you chose an industrial disinfectant. I didn't know it was dangerous." Donna Elsa had tears in her eyes. The salesperson said it was the strongest on the market, that it killed all germs. I thought I was protecting the children. Donna Elsa, you couldn't have known. But I should have researched, should have read the labels more carefully. The housekeeper began to cry. "If I did this to those girls, if I made them sick." Sophia placed her hand on her shoulder. "You were trying to help. You had no way of knowing. You knew. You looked at the product and knew. I was lucky to work in a hospital where they used glutaraldehyde. If it weren't for that, I would never have recognized it." Donna Elsa wiped her eyes. "If the tests prove you're right, I'm going to resign. Don't do that. The girls need you. This house needs you. How can they trust me after what I did?" "You didn't do anything on purpose, and when you find out the truth, Ms. Fernanda will understand that." Donna Elsa looked at her with an expression of gratitude mixed with guilt. "Why are you being so kind to me? I was cold to you since you arrived." Sophia smiled slightly. "Because I know what it's like to carry guilt, and I know we do the best we can with the information we have. You're a good person, Donna Elsa. You're a good person, Sophia." When Sophia returned to the twins' room, she found Fernanda sitting between the 2 beds, reading a story to the girls. It was a scene she hadn't seen before, the mother dedicating exclusive time to her daughters, voice low and affectionate, the girls looking at her with adoration. She stood at the door, watching, feeling a wave of emotion. There was something deeply beautiful in that scene, something that showed the woman behind the businesswoman. Fernanda looked up and saw her. "Sophia, do you want to join us?" "I don't want to interrupt." "You're not interrupting. I was reading their favorite part, the knight who saves the princess." Marina looked at Sophia with excitement. "Do you like stories?" "Very much." "Then sit here." She patted the space next to her on the bed. Sophia sat down, and Fernanda continued the story. It was a classic fairy tale, full of adventures and happy endings. But as she listened, Sophia thought the real story of those girls hadn't yet found its happy ending. The test results arrived on a Thursday morning and changed everything. Sophia was in the kitchen having coffee when Fernanda entered with an expression she had never seen before. It was a mixture of relief, anger, and something like reverence. "The tests came back positive," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "Glutaraldehyde, elevated levels in both girls' blood. Isabella has concentrations 3 times higher than Marina." Sophia felt her legs weaken. She was right. What does this mean? It means you saved my daughter's lives. Dr. Ottavia appeared at the kitchen door, and her expression was hard to read. Fernanda, we need to talk about these results. What's there to talk about? Sophia was right. Technically, yes. But I could never have predicted this. Glutaraldehyde isn't something you look for in routine exams. And why didn't you investigate when Sophia suggested it? Because it was an absurd theory, coming from someone without medical qualifications. Dr. Ottavia raised her voice. I have 25 years of experience. Fernanda took a step toward the doctor. This nanny did in 2 weeks what you couldn't do in over a year. She was lucky, nothing more. Lucky. Sophia's voice was low but firm. You call it luck when someone pays attention to details others ignore? Dr. Ottavia looked at her with contempt. You're a worker who got lucky. That doesn't make you a doctor. I never said I was a doctor. I just said something was wrong, and it was. Fernanda positioned herself between the two. Dr. Ottavia, thank you for your services, but I think we don't need them anymore. You're firing me? I'm saying we'll find another professional. Dr. Ottavia's face turned red with anger. You're going to regret this, Fernanda. I won't need to. I have someone who really cares about them. Dr. Ottavia left, slamming doors. Fernanda approached Sophia. You're going to stay here. Not as a nanny. As what? As part of this family. As someone I want present in my daughter's lives for a long time. Before she could respond, there was a commotion upstairs. Donna Elsa's voice calling, and then a scream. Miss Fernanda, it's Isabella. She's not responding. Both ran upstairs. In the girls' room, Isabella was lying in bed, eyes open but fixed on nothing, body completely still. I came in to wake them up and she was like this. She doesn't respond to anything. Sophia touched the girl's forehead. It was cold and damp. Isabella, Isabella, can you hear me? No response. Call an ambulance, Sophia said to Fernanda. Now. What's happening to her? It could be a reaction to glutaraldehyde. Could be withdrawal. We need a hospital. Marina was awake, huddled in the corner of her bed, eyes full of terror. What's wrong with Isabella? Why isn't she talking? She's going to be okay, my love. Mama's calling for help. Fernanda was on the phone, voice urgent. Sophia kept her hand on Isabella's forehead, talking to her in a low voice. Isabella, I know you're in there. You're strong, my love. The minutes seemed like hours. Marina was clinging to Sophia's leg, shaking. Donna Elsa prayed silently. They said 10 minutes, Fernanda murmured. Will there be time? What if there isn't? What if I lose her too? Sophia held Fernanda by the shoulders. You're not going to lose her. Isabella is strong, and now we know what was wrong. You don't understand. When Carolina died, I promised I'd take care of them, that I'd never let anything bad happen. Fernanda, you did everything you could. You spent fortunes, consulted specialists. You couldn't have predicted. I was lucky to have the right experience at the right time. The ambulance arrived in 8 minutes. The paramedics ran in, put Isabella on the stretcher. She's in shock, one of them said. We need to go now. Fernanda wanted to go along, but Sophia held her. Stay with Marina. She needs you. But Isabella, I'll go with her. I'll stay until you arrive. Sophia got into the ambulance as the doors closed. Are you the mother? A paramedic asked. I'm the nanny. What happened? Glutaraldehyde poisoning, prolonged exposure. Tests confirmed this morning. Throughout the trip, Sophia kept Isabella's hand in hers. The girl remained still, but she felt a weak pulse. You're going to be okay, my love. Sophia is here. At the hospital, Isabella was taken to the pediatric ICU. Sophia was stopped at the door and sat in a plastic chair, letting tears fall. Fernanda arrived 20 minutes later with Marina in her arms. How is she? I don't know. They took her to ICU. Marina reached out to Sophia. Is Isabella going to die? No, my love. Promise? Sophia looked at Fernanda, who had tears in her eyes. I promise the doctors are doing everything they can. They waited 2 hours. Dona Elsa prayed. Fernanda paced back and forth. Sophia kept Marina on her lap, singing softly. When the doctor appeared, everyone stood up. Almeida family? I'm the mother. How is my daughter? Isabella suffered a severe withdrawal crisis. When the body is exposed to a toxin for a long time and then it's removed, there can be adverse reactions. The organism adapts to the substance's presence. But she's going to be okay? We stabilized her. Now it's a matter of time. We need to do a gradual detoxification. How long? Weeks, maybe months. But the good news is, now we know what we're treating. Fernanda let out a sigh. Can I see her? You can, but only one visitor at a time. Fernanda looked at Sophia. You go first. Fernanda, she's your daughter. And you saved her life. Go. Sophia entered the ICU with her heart in her throat. Isabella was in a small bed, surrounded by equipment. But her eyes were open, and when she saw her, something moved in her expression. Sophia. The voice was weak, almost a whisper. Hi, my love. How are you feeling? Tired. Where am I? At the hospital. You got sick, but the doctors are taking care of you. I dreamed about Mama. Sophia felt a tightness in her chest. What did she say? She said I was going to be okay, that there was someone new taking care of me. Now Sophia couldn't contain the tears. You're going to be okay, Isabella, I promise. Are you the new person? I am. Then Mama was right. Isabella closed her eyes, exhausted, but there was a small smile on her lips. And Sophia knew in that moment that no matter what came next, she had found her place in that family. The following weeks were an emotional roller coaster. Isabella spent 10 days in ICU before being transferred to a regular room. Doctors monitored her blood levels daily, adjusting treatments and medications as needed. Detoxification was slow, but working. Marina visited her sister every day after school. Fernanda had hired a tutor, so she wouldn't miss classes, but insisted the girl could see Isabella whenever she wanted. Hi, Isabella. I brought you a drawing. Marina showed a colored sheet of paper where she had drawn 2 girls holding hands, a house, and a female figure next to them. Who's that? Isabella asked, pointing to the woman. It's Sophia. She's our family now. Sophia, standing at the door, felt her heart squeeze. Why did you draw her? Because she takes care of us and Mama likes her a lot. Isabella looked at Sophia with those big, serious eyes. Do you like Mama? The question was so direct, so typical of a 5-year-old, that Sophia didn't know how to respond immediately. I like your Mama very much, and I like you both very much. And does she like you? I think so. Isabella seemed satisfied with the answer. Mama would like you too. She liked good people. Fernanda appeared at the door at that moment, carrying a bag of fruit. What are you talking about? About you and Sophia, Marina said innocently. Isabella asked if you like each other. Fernanda looked at Sophia, and there was something in her look that made Sophia's heart race. And what did Sophia answer? She said she likes you. And you, Mama, do you like her? The silence that followed lasted only a few seconds but seemed like an eternity. Then Fernanda smiled, a real smile that completely transformed her expression. I like her very much. She saved your lives. So can she be our new Mama? Marina. Sophia's face turned red. What? We don't have a Mama, and you take care of us just like a Mama. Isabella nodded. I think it's a good idea. Fernanda approached Sophia, who was completely awkward. It seems my daughters have already decided. Fernanda, they're children. They don't know what they're saying. Children usually see things more clearly than adults. She held Sophia's hand. What if I said I agree with them? Sophia felt the air leave her lungs. What are you saying? I'm saying that in the last few weeks you've become the most important person in my daughters' lives. And to be honest, in my life too. You gave me hope when I had lost all of it. You saved my daughters when no one else could. And you reminded me there's still goodness in the world. Fernanda, this is too fast. It is, but after losing Carolina, I learned life is too short to wait. I'm not asking you to marry me tomorrow. I'm just asking you to give me a chance. To consider the possibility of being part of this family for real. Sophia looked at the two girls on the bed, watching the scene with curious and hopeful eyes. She looked at Fernanda, who looked at her with a vulnerability she had never seen in her, and thought about everything that had happened since she got off that bus with a worn suitcase, looking at a mansion that seemed from another world. Yes, she said. Yes, I want to be part of this family. Marina jumped from the chair. She said yes, Mama. She said yes. Isabella smiled, the first real smile Sophia had seen in weeks. Now we're a real family. Fernanda hugged Sophia, and in that moment, in the hospital room, with two sick but recovering girls, something new began. It wasn't a happy ending yet, no. There was a long road ahead, many difficulties to overcome, but it was a beginning. And sometimes a beginning was all you needed. That night, after the girls fell asleep, Sophia and Fernanda sat in the hospital waiting room, side by side. You know it's not going to be easy, right? Sophia said. We still have a long way to go. Isabella needs months of treatment. Marina will also need follow-up, and I'm not a doctor. I know, but you're more than any doctor could be for them. Fernanda held her hand. You see them for real, not as patients or problems to solve. You see them as children who need love, when they deserve all the love in the world. And you deserve to be loved too, Sophia. She looked at her, and for the first time since she'd entered that mansion, felt she didn't need to prove herself anymore, didn't need to fight against distrust and prejudice anymore, that she had found a place where she was valued for who she was, not for what she had or didn't have. Thank you, she whispered, for believing in me when no one else did. I'm the one who thanks you for not giving up when it would have been easier to leave. I never gave up on a child who needed me, and I wasn't going to start with your daughters. Fernanda kissed her gently, a kiss that promised a future, a family, a new life. And as night advanced, and the hospital continued its quiet rhythm of monitors and hurried steps, Sophia realized her life had completely changed. She had entered that house as a nanny desperate for a job, and was leaving as part of a family. Donna Elsa had been right. She had looked at those girls the right way, and they, without knowing it, had looked at her too. The road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time in a long time, Sophia wasn't facing it alone. 6 months later, the Almeida mansion was unrecognizable. Not physically. The walls were still marble, the gardens still impeccably maintained, the expensive paintings still on the walls. But the atmosphere was completely different. Where there had been silence and sadness, now there were laughs. Where there had been fear and despair, now there was hope and joy. Marina and Isabella were completely recovered. The treatments had worked, detoxification had been successful, and the girls had become what they should have been all along, healthy, energetic children, full of life. Sophia watched them play in the garden while having coffee on the porch. They ran after a ball, screaming and laughing. Thinking about what? Fernanda appeared behind her. About how things have changed. 6 months ago, I was getting off a bus with a worn suitcase. And now you're part of this family. Sophia smiled. Are you sure you want to do this? More sure than I've ever been of anything in my life. Today was the day. After 6 months of dating, nights talking about the future, family weekends, Fernanda had asked Sofia to marry her. She had accepted without hesitation. The ceremony would be simple, just family and close friends in the mansion's garden. Sofia didn't want anything extravagant. After a lifetime of hardship, she had learned to value simple things. "Sofia! Sofia!" Marina came running to her, holding something in her hands. "Look what I found." It was a flower from the garden, a white rose she had carefully plucked. "It's for you, so you'll be prettier at the wedding." Sofia felt her eyes fill with tears. "Thank you, my love. It's the most beautiful flower I've ever received." Isabella came right behind her sister. "I also wanted to give you something, but I didn't find anything good. You being here healthy and happy is already the best gift I could receive. But that's not a real gift." "Of course it is. It's the most important gift of all." Fernanda watched the scene with a smile. "Girls, why don't you go get ready? The ceremony starts in an hour." "Okay, Mama." The two ran into the house, leaving Sofia and Fernanda alone again. "They adore you," Fernanda said. "Sometimes I think they like you more than me." "That's not true. They love you. But you saved their lives. You were the person who saw what no one else saw. That creates a special bond. Anyone would have done the same thing." "No, not anyone. You did it because of who you are, because you truly care, because you don't let prejudices or fears stop you from doing what's right." Sofia thought about Dr. Ottavia, the disdain with which she had treated her, how she had dismissed her ideas simply because she didn't have a medical degree. She thought about all the times in her life she had been underestimated because of her humble origins. "You know what I learned from all this?" "What?" "That the most important answers don't always come from those we expect. Sometimes they come from those we least imagine, and it's worth listening even when the person speaking doesn't have the right credentials." Fernanda hugged her. "I'll try to always remember that." The ceremony was held at sunset, with the garden lit by hundreds of candles. Sofia wore a simple white dress she had chosen herself. Fernanda wore a dark suit but no tie, because she knew Sofia preferred more informal things. Donna Elsa was in the front row, crying copiously. In recent months, she and Sofia had become unlikely friends. The housekeeper had never completely forgiven herself for the cleaning product, but Sofia had helped her understand that mistakes didn't define a person. Marina and Isabella were the flower girls. They carried the rings on a velvet cushion, serious and focused, as if this were the most important mission of their lives. "Are you ready?" the priest asked Sofia. More than ever. The vows were simple, sincere, without unnecessary flourishes. Fernanda promised to love and care for Sofia for her whole life. Sofia promised to love and care for Fernanda and the girls as if they were her own flesh and blood. "Do you accept Fernanda as your wife?" "I do." "Do you accept Sofia as your wife?" "I do." "Then I declare you wife and wife." The kiss was soft, full of promise. The girls applauded and shouted. Donna Elsa cried even more, and Sofia, for the first time in her life, felt she was exactly where she should be. The party continued into the night, but Sofia slipped out at some point to be alone in the garden. She needed a moment to absorb everything that had happened. "Can I join you?" It was Isabella, still dressed in her flower girl outfit, eyes tired but bright. "Of course, my love. Come sit with me." She settled next to her on the garden bench. "Sofia, can I ask you something?" "You can. Now that you married Mama, are you my real Mama?" Sofia felt her heart squeeze. It was a question she knew would come, but she didn't expect it so soon. "I'll never replace your real Mama, Isabella. Carolina will always be your mother, and you'll always be able to love her and remember her. But you take care of us just like a mama." "Yes. And I love you and Marina as if you were my daughters. But love isn't a competition. You can love Carolina and love me too. The heart has room for everyone. Isabella thought for a moment. So can I call you Mama? Sophia felt tears running down her face. If you want, you can call me whatever you want. I want to, because you're my mama now. The mama who takes care of us here. She hugged her, and Sophia held her with all the strength she had. I love you, Isabella. Very, very much. I love you too, Mama. Marina came running. What are you doing? Isabella's telling me a secret. What secret? Isabella looked at Sophia with a smile. That Sophia is our mama now. Marina's eyes widened. Is it true? Can I call you Mama too? You can. Mama. Marina jumped into Sophia's lap. I always wanted to have a mama again. Fernanda appeared in the garden, probably looking for them. Found you. What's happening here? Mama, Sophia is our mama now, Marina announced. She said we can call her that. Fernanda looked at Sophia, who had tears in her eyes but was smiling. Is it true? It is, if you don't mind. Mind, Sophia. This is everything I've always wanted for them. A mother who truly loved them. She joined them on the bench, and the four stayed embraced under the stars, an unlikely family brought together by fate. You know what I was thinking? Sophia said after a while. What? That there should be a way to help other families going through what you went through. Sick children, desperate parents, doctors who can't find answers. Fernanda looked at her with interest. What do you have in mind? A foundation. Some kind of organization that helps investigate unsolved medical cases, especially those where environmental factors might be the cause. That would be incredible. We could call it Second Chance Foundation, because sometimes all a family needs is someone who looks at the problem from a different angle. I like it, and I have the resources to make it happen. Would you do this, Sophia? You saved my daughter's lives. If you want to save other children's lives, I'll do everything in my power to help. And so, on that wedding night, not just a family was born, but a mission, a foundation that, in the following years, would help hundreds of families find answers that traditional doctors couldn't provide. An organization that valued attentive observation, patient listening, and the courage to ask questions others were afraid to ask. Sophia looked at Fernanda, at Marina, at Isabella, and knew this was just the beginning. There was much work to do, many families to help, many children to save. But she wasn't alone anymore. She had a family now, a family that loved her, respected her, believed in her. And that, in the end, was everything she had always wanted. 2 years later, the Second Chance Foundation had already helped over 200 families. Sophia had become a tireless advocate for patients with difficult diagnoses. Marina and Isabella, now 7 years old, were completely healthy. They attended school normally, played, made messes. The nightmare of illness seemed distant. On a Sunday afternoon, while the family had a picnic in the garden, Marina came running with a letter in hand. Mama, Mama, a letter arrived for you. Sophia took the envelope and immediately recognized the sender. It was from the Regional Medical Council. What is it? Fernanda asked. I don't know. Let me open it. The letter was short, but significant. The council was granting Sophia an honorary certification in environmental health consulting, in recognition of her pioneering work in identifying environmental causes of pediatric diseases. This is incredible, Sophia. I can't believe it. She looked at the letter, hands shaking. After everything Dr. Ottavia said about me not having qualifications. You showed her. You showed everyone. Isabella approached and looked at the letter with curiosity. What does this mean, Mama? It means people are recognizing the work I do. Like an award? Kind of. Cool. You deserve an award. Sophia hugged the girl, thinking about how it all started. A dismissal letter from the last family where she'd worked, an urgent vacancy at a millionaire's mansion, 2 sick girls no one could cure, and now a family, a purpose, a recognition she had never sought but that meant everything. "You know what I love most about you," Fernanda said, "that you never lost your humility. Because that person is me, and I won't forget where I came from." The girls ran off to play, and Fernanda and Sophia sat on the grass. "Are you happy?" she asked. "Happier than I ever imagined possible." "Really, Fernanda?" "I grew up without family, lost my parents early, was raised by relatives who saw me as a burden, worked my whole life caring for other people's children, knowing I'd never have my own. And now look at me." She gestured to the girls, the house, everything around. "I have 2 daughters who call me Mama. I have a wife who loves and respects me. I have work that makes a difference in people's lives. How could I not be happy?" Fernanda kissed her gently. "You deserve all this happiness and much more." That night, after the girls went to sleep, Sophia went to the porch and looked at the stars. She thought about Carolina, the woman she had never met but whose presence was still felt in that house. She thought about the girls she loved as her own. She thought about all the families the foundation had helped and would continue helping. And she thought about herself, the poor girl who had grown up believing she would never be anything more than a worker, the woman who had discovered that value isn't measured by degrees or social positions, but by the ability to see what others don't see, and the courage to act when others give up. Fernanda appeared beside her. "What are you thinking about?" "About how a single question can change everything." "What question?" "The one I asked Dr. Ottavia about cleaning products. It seemed so simple, so obvious, but it was the question no one else had asked." "Sometimes simple questions are the most powerful." "Yes, sometimes they are." They stood in silence for a moment, enjoying the night. "Sophia?" "Yes?" "Thank you." "For what?" "For everything. For my daughters. For my life. For showing me there are still good people in the world." Sophia smiled. "Thank you for giving me a family." And as the stars shone above them, Sophia knew she had found her place in the world. Not as the nanny who entered through the back door, but as the woman who saved an entire family, simply by having the courage to ask the right questions. The CEO had paid fortunes to cure her daughters, but the cure came for free, offered by someone who had nothing but attentive eyes and a willing heart to see. And that, in the end, was the greatest lesson of all. If this story touched something inside you, leave a comment. Sometimes, recognizing what we feel already changes more than we imagine. Your comment can help someone who is silent today.